Excuse me. Who taught you to sign like that? The words struck like a crack of thunder in a silent sky. Sudden, sharp, impossible to ignore. Maya Williams froze mid-motion, her fingers still suspended midair in the last curve of a graceful sign. Her cleaning cart stood nearby in the quiet marble hallway of the Wexford Tower's 46th floor. It was early morning, and she had been alone, so she thought. She turned slowly. Standing near the window, hands in his pockets, was Ethan Caldwell. Tall, composed, and sharp-suited. He looked every bit the man whose face had graced Forbes, Time, and Business Tech magazines, CEO of Clearlink Technologies, the man Maya had only ever seen from afar until now. Her breath caught, her eyes widened, panic surged in her chest. She had been signing to herself during a quiet moment. Just muscle memory. Just practice now. She thought she might be fired for it. I'm sorry, Maya stammered, her voice trembling. I didn't mean. I wasn't. Ethan's brow lifted in mild confusion. No need to apologize. I was just surprised. That was sign language, right? Maya's heart thumped hard enough to shake her ribs. Her voice came out small. Yes, sir. I didn't think anyone would see me. I was just practicing. She dropped her gaze, her shoulders tensed, almost shrinking in on herself. I wasn't trying to do anything wrong, she added quickly. Please don't report me. I really need this job. Ethan's expression shifted, less curious now, more gentle. You're not in trouble, Maya, he said, reading her name from the badge clipped to her shirt. I wasn't expecting to see anyone signing on this floor, and I certainly didn't expect it to be that expressive. Maya blinked. That wasn't what she expected to hear. Not at all. I learned ASL for my little brother, she said, voice still soft. He's deaf. I used to study it in school. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. I could tell you weren't just mimicking signs. It looked fluent. Felt real. Maya said nothing. Too stunned to form words. She clutched the edge of her cleaning cart, grounding herself. After a moment, Ethan took a step forward. Would you mind stopping by my office tomorrow morning? Just for a few minutes. I'd like to talk. Maya's head jerked up. Your office? She echoed, nearly whispering. He offered a faint, polite smile. Yes, nothing formal. I just have a feeling you might be able to help us in ways you don't realize yet. Then he nodded once and walked away, his footsteps disappearing into the silence of the executive hallway. Maya remained frozen, blinking at the polished floor, a strange tightness in her throat. She had no idea what had just happened, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't invisible that evening. In the modest two-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother and teenage brother, Zeke, Maya sat quietly at the kitchen table, her dinner untouched. Zeke sprawled on the couch with his math book, noticed her silence, and signed. What happened today? She hesitated, then slowly signed back. The CEO saw me signing. He talked to me. Zeke's eyes grew wide. And he asked me to go to his office tomorrow. Zeke dropped his pencil. What? You have to go? I don't know if I should, Maya replied, speaking aloud. What if I get fired for overstepping? What if he thinks I'm strange? You're not strange. You're gifted. Maya gave a small uncertain smile. You taught yourself a whole language because of me. Zeke continued. That's not something you hide. It's something you should be proud of. Maya looked down at her hands. The same hands that folded sheets and wiped counters and in stolen moments danced in the air for no one but herself. And now someone had noticed. The next morning, Maya ironed her uniform twice. She didn't own business clothes or a proper handbag, but she tied her hair back neatly and applied a thin layer of lip balm. When she walked into the staff hallway, her knees were already unsteady. At precisely 9:02 a.m., a hotel security officer found her near the janitor's closet. Miss Williams, she turned quickly. Yes, you're expected on the 47th floor. Please come with me. Her heart skipped as they rode the elevator up. Maya stared straight ahead, willing her breathing to stay calm. 41, 42, 43. Each number felt like a countdown to something unknown. When the doors opened, everything changed. The executive floor smelled faintly of cedar and citrus polish. The carpet was lush, the air quiet and expensive. This wasn't a place she belonged. The receptionist glanced up. "You're Miss Williams. Go right in. Mr. Caldwell is expecting you." Maya's feet carried her forward, though everything inside her begged her to turn back. She paused outside the frosted glass door with golden lettering. Ethan Caldwell, CEO, ClearLink Technologies. She raised her hand to knock. Then she thought of Zeke, of his hand signing. "You got this." She took a breath and knocked. "Come in," said a voice from the other side of the door. Maya hesitated just for a breath, then turned the handle and stepped into the room. Ethan Caldwell's office was spacious, but not extravagant. A wall of windows looked out over the city skyline, and a large wooden desk stood near the center, flanked by bookshelves and minimal decor except for a framed photo on the shelf behind him. Maya noticed it as she stepped closer. A younger Ethan, maybe 7 or 8, sitting beside a much older man with hearing aids. Both of them smiling with their hands raised in what looked like signs. "Miss Williams," Ethan said, standing from behind his desk. He wasn't as intimidating in this room. No suit jacket, just a white dress shirt with rolled sleeves. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." She sat carefully on the edge of the chair, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Every part of her posture whispered, "I don't belong here." Ethan sat across from her, resting his forearms lightly on the desk. "I know this is unexpected. I appreciate you coming upstairs." Maya nodded but said nothing. He studied her for a moment, then asked gently, "How long have you been signing?" "Since I was 15, she replied, voice quiet. "My brother Zeke lost his hearing after a high fever. My mom couldn't afford speech therapy or interpreters, so I started learning on my own. YouTube, library books. Eventually, I took some community classes." "And you were studying it formally at some point?" "Yes. I enrolled in the linguistics program at Roosevelt University. I was hoping to become an interpreter, maybe even work in education for deaf children." "What happened?" Maya hesitated, looking down at her hands. "My mom got sick. Breast cancer. I dropped out before my final year. I had to work." Ethan nodded slowly, as if he understood something deeper than just the words. "That's a heavy choice." "It wasn't really a choice," Maya said with a soft shrug. "We needed the money. Cleaning jobs were easier to get. No questions asked." "You've been working here long?" "For years," she said. "Full-time for the last 3, mostly mornings. I like the early shifts. Quiet." He smiled at that. "You seem like someone who listens more than she speaks." "That's probably true." There was another short silence. Then Ethan leaned slightly forward. "Let me get straight to the point, Maya. My company, ClearLinkware, is developing new AI tools that recognize and interpret sign language. We've made solid progress with traditional ASL, but we're hitting a wall when it comes to nuance and fluid conversation. The system struggles with regional variations, emotional intent, even basic sentence structure when the pacing changes." Maya blinked, listening. "What we need," he continued, "is someone who understands ASL not just as a language, but as a lived experience. Someone who knows how people actually use it, families in daily life. We need perspective." She tilted her head, confused. "You think I could help?" "I do," he said simply. "Would you be open to consulting with us? A part-time position at first, flexible hours, paid well. You'd work directly with our development team to identify where our system misses the mark. You'd be shaping something that could improve lives." Maya's heart skipped. Her first instinct was to recoil, to find the nearest exit. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm not qualified," she said quickly. "I never finished school." I've never worked in tech. I don't even have a resume. I clean hotel rooms. You're also someone who has lived the language. You taught yourself out of love. That's more than most of my team understands. But I'm not the kind of person who works on important projects. Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. Can I tell you something? When I was 5 years old, I fell out of a tree and cracked my skull. The swelling damaged my auditory nerves. I was deaf until I was nearly 8. Maya's eyes widened. I was lucky, he said. There was a new surgical procedure just entering trials. It restored partial hearing, but for nearly 3 years, I lived in silence. I remember the frustration, the isolation, the feeling of being invisible. He paused, then added, and then yesterday morning, someone signed to me out of nowhere and reminded me of why I started this company in the first place. Maya swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sleek white business card, sliding it across the desk. That's my direct number. If you want to talk more, or if you decide to give this a shot, call me. She stared at the card like it was made of glass. Take your time, he said. No pressure, but just so you know, you're already the most interesting person I've talked to all week. Maya couldn't help but smile, shy and uncertain. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Ethan, he corrected. She stood, card still clutched in her hand. Thank you, Ethan. If you felt moved by Maya's quiet courage in this moment, tap the like button to show your support and drop a comment with where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching, too, brought to you by BUP Stories. As she stepped back into the hallway, the quiet of the executive floor felt different than before. Less distant, less off limits. The carpet still cushioned her steps. The glass still shimmered in soft sunlight, but something had changed. Downstairs, she returned to her cart, resumed her duties, but her thoughts stayed upstairs. That evening, Zeke found her in their shared kitchen, the business card face down on the table. You didn't call him, he signed. I don't think I can, she said aloud. What if I fail? What if I disappoint him? Zeke reached over, took her hand. Then with deliberate signs, he said, what if you don't? What if this is exactly where you're supposed to be? Maya didn't answer right away. But later, as she lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her fingers moved silently in the air, rehearsing old signs, letting them breathe again. Somewhere deep inside, a door had opened. Whether she was brave enough to walk through it, that remained to be seen. The Clearlink Technologies building didn't look like much from the outside, just another glass-fronted mid-rise in the West Loop, wedged between a sushi spot and a dry cleaner's. As Maya stepped into the lobby, the atmosphere felt entirely different from the hotel. Sleek, clean, alive with quiet motion. People with tablets passed one another in hushed conversations. Glass walls revealed labs and meeting rooms full of engineers in smart casual clothes and whiteboards covered in scribbles and arrows. Maya clutched her shoulder bag tightly, still wearing the same polished flats she used at work. Her outfit was modest, a clean white blouse, dark pants, and a borrowed cardigan from her mother. She'd called Ethan that morning, barely able to say the words, but he'd responded immediately. I'm glad. Can you come in today? Now she stood just inside the sliding doors. The receptionist already waving her forward. Miss Williams. Mr. Caldwell is waiting for you upstairs. The elevator ride felt like it belonged in a different world. No clunky service buttons, no chipped panels. Everything shimmered in soft silver and blue. When the doors opened, Maya stepped into a floor filled with energy. No cubicles, just open workspaces, high-top tables, and screens mounted everywhere. Ethan approached from a side hallway, smiling warmly. Maya, you made it. Barely, she whispered with a nervous laugh. My stomach tried to talk me out of it all morning. I'm glad it lost the argument. He gestured for her to follow, leading her past a few curious glances from tech staff in t-shirts and jeans who looked at her like she'd wandered in from another reality. Maya noticed the contrast instantly. She stood out, not just for her skin tone or her clothes, but her posture. She carried herself like someone unsure if she was welcome. They entered a medium-sized conference room with 2 large monitors on one wall and a sleek table lined with tablets. On the screens, there were paused clips of hands signing different phrases frozen mid-motion. "This is the sandbox," Ethan said, pulling out a chair for her, "where we break everything so we can figure out how to build it better." Maya smiled faintly. "That feels familiar." He handed her a tablet. "This is our current AI recognition system. It's at about 70% accuracy with formal ASL, but when people sign faster with emotion or dialect variation, the accuracy drops, sometimes badly." Maya watched a short clip on the tablet. A woman signed quickly. "I need help now, please." The AI's interpretation showed. "Need now?" Confused. "That's not just wrong," Maya said, frowning. "That's dangerous." "Exactly." She leaned forward, watching the clip again, then switched to a different example. Her fingers moved unconsciously in the air beside her as she analyzed each motion. The AI isn't accounting for blended signs, and the handshake tracking is off when the signer moves too fast, especially with emotion. Ethan's eyes lit up. "You see that?" She nodded slowly. "It's interpreting literal position instead of intent. It doesn't understand nuance. It doesn't understand context." And that," he said, tapping the screen gently, "is why we need you." Maya swallowed. The words felt too big, too heavy. She shook her head. "I don't know if I belong here." Ethan looked at her seriously. "Maya, you already are here." For the next 2 hours, Maya became someone she hadn't met in a long time. Her nervousness slowly faded as she focused on the patterns, the errors, the missing human touch. She explained how her brother signed differently when he was scared versus excited. How her community developed shortcuts that AI would never recognize without lived experience. When she showed the difference between frustrated and confused, 2 signs that looked similar but held totally different energy, Ethan laughed in disbelief. "No wonder our testers keep reporting emotional disconnects." Maya smiled for the first time that day without hesitation. "It's like reading lips without listening to tone. You get the words, not the meaning." They took a break. Maya sat by the window in the hallway sipping a paper cup of mint tea. Her heart was racing, not from fear this time, but something else, something warmer, like she had value here. Sarah Chan appeared shortly after. Maya had never met her before, but the woman's sharp black pantsuit and quick steps carried a distinct air of authority. She stopped just in front of Maya, studying her. "You're Maya Williams?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sarah Chen. I oversee staffing coordination and internal security for ClearLink partnerships." Her voice was crisp, professional, and utterly unreadable. "I understand you're assisting on the ASL interface." "I'm trying," Maya replied quietly. Sarah's smile was tight. "I hope you understand that Mr. Caldwell's trust is rare. So is executive-level collaboration. People tend to notice when that trust is extended to someone without formal credentials." Maya blinked, unsure how to respond. "I'm sure your insights are helpful," Sarah continued. "But be mindful. Not every opportunity is as permanent as it appears." Then with a nod, she turned and walked away. Maya sat frozen for a moment. That same familiar voice, the voice of doubt, had just put on heels and a badge. She stared down at her tea, suddenly tasting bitterness beneath the mint. Later, when Ethan returned and sat beside her in the hallway, he noticed something had shifted. "You okay?" he asked. Maya nodded once. "Just wondering if I'm in over my head." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Want to know something?" She glanced over. "My first job was stocking shelves at a Radio Shack in Peoria. I had zero technical knowledge, just curiosity. I used to fix old Walkmans at night just to understand how they worked." Maya smiled faintly. "I built this company because no one listened to me when I was deaf." They smiled and nodded, but they didn't listen. "And now I don't want to build anything that forgets what it feels like to be invisible." He looked at her carefully. You've lived both sides of this story, Maya. You've been unheard, and you've learned how to help others speak. That's exactly what we need. She felt her throat tighten, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was recognition. He stood and offered a hand. Come on, we've got a lot more to break before we start building. And as Maya placed her hand in his, something inside her shifted just slightly, enough to begin. 2 days later, Maya stood quietly by the supply shelves in the hotel's service corridor, folding fresh towels with mechanical precision. Her body was present, but her mind was still in that ClearLink conference room, surrounded by monitors, feedback loops, and conversations that felt like they finally included her. Every part of her had come alive up there. She wasn't just cleaning up messes. She was making something. But down here in this gray hallway with its flickering fluorescent light and the faint scent of bleach, everything felt duller, heavier. Maya, the voice made her flinch. She turned to see Sarah Chin standing just a few steps away, arms crossed. In her charcoal gray blazer and pointed heels, Sarah looked like she belonged to another universe. A cold, polished one. Yes, ma'am, Maya asked, setting the towel stack aside. I'd like a word. Maya followed her without argument, trailing behind through the service hallway until they reached a small meeting room used for staff evaluations. Sarah closed the door behind them with a soft but deliberate click. I understand you've been spending time at ClearLink. She began, not sitting. Maya clasped her hands. Yes. Mr. Caldwell invited me to consult on the ASL interface. Sarah nodded, her expression unreadable. I'm aware and I want to be clear. While the hotel encourages ambition among our staff, we also expect boundaries. What you do in your off hours is your business, but if it compromises your availability or performance here, it becomes mine. Maya's chest tightened. I've made sure my shifts are covered, ma'am. I haven't missed a minute. I'm sure, Sarah said, her tone sharper now, but I've seen situations like this before. An employee gets noticed. They get pulled into something bigger than they're prepared for. And suddenly, reality hits. They burn out. Or worse, they embarrass themselves. Maya bit her lip. I'm trying my best. That may not be enough. These executives, people like Ethan Caldwell, they live in a different world. They don't always mean harm, but they forget what it's like to be on the ground. They make promises they can't keep. Maya's voice came out smaller than she meant. I don't think Mr. Caldwell is like that. Sarah stepped closer, her expression hardening. Even if he's not, you need to ask yourself, are you ready for what he's offering? Are you prepared to walk into a room full of people with Ivy League degrees and speak like you belong? I don't know, Maya admitted. But I want to try. Sarah stared at her for a long second, then gave a tight smile. Ambition is admirable, but knowing your limits, that's wisdom. Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. Not with the heat rising in her face, not with her heart pounding in her ears. After Sarah left, Maya stayed in the small room for a few minutes, staring at the wall. The light above her buzzed faintly. She suddenly felt like a child again, too loud, too curious, always being told to sit still, to stop dreaming. She thought of Zeke's face when she'd first told him about ClearLink. That wide-eyed pride, what would he think now? She was still lost in thought when she heard a familiar voice outside the room. Maya, it was Mrs. Ida Green, her longtime supervisor and quiet guardian in the hotel's unseen workforce. With graying curls and eyes like steel wrapped in velvet, Mrs. Green had been working hotel floors since before Maya was born. I've been looking all over for you, the older woman said, stepping in. What's got you folded up like a paper fan? Maya looked at her, hesitated, then spoke softly. Mrs. Chen had some concerns about me working with Mr. Caldwell. Mrs. Green arched an eyebrow. Concerns, huh? That woman's got a closet full of them, color-coded and alphabetized. She said people like me don't belong in rooms like that with engineers in suits. She said I might embarrass myself. Mrs. Green didn't speak at first. She walked over, pulled out a chair, and sat across from Maya. Let me tell you something, she said, folding her hands. I've worked in hotels for 32 years. I've seen congressmen throw tantrums and CEOs cry like toddlers because their pillow wasn't the right firmness. You think they're any more qualified to change the world than you? Maya shook her head slowly, lips pressed tight. You have something they don't, Mrs. Green continued. You know how to listen. You know what silence means? You've lived it. That man didn't ask you upstairs because he felt sorry for you. He saw something real. But what if I fail? Maya whispered. Mrs. Green gave her a look both firm and kind. Then you fail forward, you fall, you learn, and you rise higher next time. The only people who never fall are the ones too scared to try. Maya sat very still, her hands resting quietly in her lap. The weight in her chest hadn't gone away, but it had shifted. She wasn't alone in carrying it anymore. That evening, back at home, Maya sat on the edge of her bed with Ethan Caldwell's business card in one hand and her phone in the other. She dialed once, then hung up before it rang. Dialed again, then stopped. From the hallway, Zeke appeared, holding a half-eaten granola bar. You haven't called him yet, he signed, one brow raised. How do you know? You get this look like you're arguing with a ghost. Maya laughed under her breath. Zeke walked over, flopped onto the bed beside her, and signed slowly. You remember when I was scared to try out for robotics club? You told me the worst thing isn't being rejected. It's never knowing what could have happened. Maya looked at him, her eyes softening. He signed again slowly. What's the worst thing that happens if you say yes? I fail, she said aloud. I prove I'm not good enough. That I'm just a hotel maid pretending. Zeke. And what's the worst thing that happens if you say no? I stay here. I keep folding towels. I wonder for the rest of my life. He gave her a gentle nudge. Then what are you waiting for? Maya looked down at the card one more time. She picked up the phone and this time she didn't hang up. 2 rings. Then, Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell. It's Maya Williams. He paused. Then his voice shifted. Maya, I was hoping you'd call. I'd like to try if the offer is still open. It absolutely is. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? We'll talk next steps. Maya nodded even though he couldn't see. Yes. 3 o'clock, perfect. And Maya, thank you for being brave enough to say yes. When she hung up, her hands were still trembling, but there was something new beneath the nerves. Not confidence, not yet, but something close, hope and the first flicker of belief. She looked at Zeke and signed one word, tomorrow. Maya arrived at Clear Link's Temporary Development Center 15 minutes early. She stood across the street at first, watching the office windows glow with late afternoon sunlight. Her hands were damp with nerves, but her posture was straighter than before, not because she felt ready, she didn't, but because she decided she would at least show up, and that meant something. Ethan Caldwell greeted her at the elevator with a warm smile. Right on time, Maya nodded, smiling back. I walked around the block twice. Why? To keep from turning around. Ethan chuckled, motioning her forward. I get it. First day jitters. Let's channel them into something useful. They headed into a new lab space, larger than before, more structured. There were 3 engineers seated at a curved table lined with laptops. One of them, a blond man in his late 30s, looked up when Maya entered and gave a neutral nod. Another, a younger woman with short curls and a tablet in hand, smiled in quiet greeting. This is Dennis, our machine learning specialist, and Clara, one of our UI designers, Ethan introduced. They'll be working closely with you. Maya offered a polite hello and took the seat Ethan pointed out. On the center screen, Ethan pulled up the latest test scenario. A teenager was signing a message quickly. She went to the hospital. We need to call mom. The AI caption read. She go doctor. Call now. Clara frowned. We're missing entire layers of meaning. That's why Maya's here, Ethan said, then turned to her. Walk us through what's off. Maya leaned in, studying the video. It's not just the words. The rhythm matters. Look at his eyebrows when he signs "Call Mom." That urgency is lost. The AI flattens it. Dennis raised an eyebrow. The system only picks up motion. We don't have a face emotion component yet. Then maybe we need one, Ethan replied. They spent the next hour reviewing clips. Maya noted hand positioning that altered meaning, subtle shifts in body angle that indicated tone, and dozens of cultural nuances that the system hadn't been taught to recognize. Dennis occasionally pushed back, citing computational limits or dataset constraints, but even he seemed intrigued by Maya's ability to interpret layers they hadn't considered. You're saying there's a difference between textbook ASL and what people actually use, Clara summarized. Exactly. Maya said. There's textbook English and then there's how we talk at home. It's the same in sign. By the time they wrapped, Maya was surprised to find herself enjoying the conversation. She wasn't just holding her own, she was contributing. Ethan noticed too. You did great, he said as the others filtered out. How do you feel? Like I might have something to offer, she admitted shyly. He smiled. You do. Before she could respond, Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway. Ethan, can I steal a moment? Ethan nodded. Give me a second, he told Maya, then stepped into the hallway with Sarah, who spoke in low, clipped tones. Maya couldn't hear what was said, but she could see the tension. Sarah's arms crossed, her jaw tight. Ethan remained calm, hands in his pockets, but his brows furrowed just slightly. After a few minutes, he returned. His voice was even, but his smile had faded. Sorry about that, he said. Everything okay? Just logistics, he said vaguely. Come on, let me show you something. He led her to a different room, smaller, cozier, lined with whiteboards and sticky notes. A large screen displayed a map of user feedback data. Ethan sat and motioned for her to join. Maya, he said seriously. We're opening a permanent office here in Chicago. We're expanding operations and we'll need people who understand both tech and the people we're building for. Maya nodded slowly. Okay. I want to offer you a formal position. Still part-time to start if that's what you're comfortable with, but with benefits. Title, ASL User Experience Consultant. You'd work directly with design and development teams, train new hires on sign culture, and help test our tools. Maya blinked. I don't know what to say. You can take time to think about it, he said. But just so you know, you've already proven your value. Today wasn't a test. It was a beginning. She swallowed, hands clasped in her lap. Mr. Caldwell, Ethan, I'm flattered. Really? But I heard what Miss Chen said. She doesn't think I belong here. His jaw tightened subtly. I'll handle Sarah. It's not just her, Maya said. It's the world. People like me are not trained to think of ourselves as experts. Ethan leaned forward. You ever think maybe that's the problem with the world, not with you? Maya didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. Listen, he added. You're not here because I'm doing you a favor. You're here because our technology will fail without people like you. She let that settle in. The words felt too big, too generous, but part of her wanted to believe them. Back at the hotel that evening, Maya cleaned a corner suite in silence, replaying every moment of the afternoon. The feel of the tablet in her hands, the surprise on Dennis's face, the quiet pride rising in her chest. After her shift, she stepped outside into the cool night air and called Zeke. Well, he asked the moment he picked up. They offered me a real job, she said with a title and everything. Zeke whooped so loudly she had to pull the phone away. What did you say? He signed, grinning. I told them I need a little time. You've been ready, he signed. You just didn't know it yet. She laughed softly. Maybe. Maya looked up at the sky, stars barely visible through the city haze. The air smelled of damp concrete and warm pretzels from a food cart down the block. Her world hadn't changed yet, but something inside her had, and she was beginning to think Sarah Chen was wrong. Maybe people like her could belong in those rooms. Maybe they were the ones who needed to build them. The next few weeks passed in a blur of early mornings, double shifts, and quiet transformations. By day, Maya continued her duties at Wexford Tower, fluffing pillows, scrubbing bathroom counters, tucking note cards into fresh pressed sheets. But in the afternoons, she stepped into a very different world. At ClearLink's development hub, she was no longer just the maid. She was Maya Williams, ASL User Experience Consultant. Her badge even said so, laminated, clipped to a lanyard, her name printed in bold blue. She still felt self-conscious wearing it. Some part of her half expected someone to snatch it off her chest and say, "Sorry, that's not for you." But no one did. And every time she helped the AI correct a misread gesture or explained the difference between assigned surface meaning and emotional intent, the doubts inside her quieted bit by bit. One Thursday afternoon, as she walked into the lab, Clara grinned and waved her over. "We ran your feedback into the latest update," Clara said, her curls bouncing with excitement. "Watch this." On the screen, a clip showed a young woman signing, "I'm scared. He didn't come home last night." Previously, the AI had interpreted it as, "He late, worried." Now, it displayed, "I'm scared. He didn't come home last night." Word for word, right? Tone. Even the facial expression was reflected in the AI-generated voice's pitch. "That's incredible," Maya whispered. "We're at 87% emotional accuracy now," Clara said. "That's a huge leap." Dennis nearby gave a begrudging nod. "I'll admit your insights have sped this up more than I thought." Maya smiled. "I'm just helping it speak the way real people do." Ethan stepped into the room as the team celebrated. He caught Maya's eye and gave her a nod of approval that sent warmth blooming through her chest. But that warmth didn't last. That evening, back at the hotel, Maya was finishing her shift when she overheard voices down the hallway. She paused near the break room, the door cracked just wide enough to hear. Sarah Chen's voice was unmistakable. "Mr. Caldwell can't seriously think this arrangement is sustainable," she said. "She's a housekeeper with no formal education, no field training. This reflects poorly on our standards." Maya froze. Another voice, unfamiliar, responded. "Ethan swears by her, says she's made more progress with the interface than the last consultant." "That may be," Sarah snapped. "But it sets a dangerous precedent. We can't just pluck unqualified people out of hotel hallways and make them consultants." Maya stepped back quietly, heart pounding. She turned and slipped away before they saw her. She barely slept that night. The next morning, she found Ethan in the hallway at ClearLink, sipping his usual black coffee and scanning his tablet. She hesitated, then approached. "Do you have a minute?" He looked up and smiled, then caught the tension in her eyes. "Of course." She followed him into his office, a bright corner room with a view of the river. "I heard what Sarah said," she began, not waiting to sit. "Last night in the hotel, she doesn't think I belong here." Ethan sighed and set the tablet aside. "You weren't meant to hear that, but I did. And she's not wrong." Maya's voice shook, but she kept going. "I didn't finish college. I don't have a tech background, and I'm still cleaning rooms to pay rent. Maybe I am in over my head." Ethan stood, walked around his desk, and leaned against the windowsill. "Maya, let me tell you something I've never said in a boardroom." He said, "I dropped out of college sophomore year. Couldn't afford it. Everything I know about AI, I taught myself, just like you taught yourself ASL." She blinked. "You didn't graduate?" "Nope. My first startup failed. My second one barely broke even. But the third one, the one I started with 2 friends in a basement in Hyde Park, that became ClearLink." She stared at him, stunned. "Credentials matter," he said. "But they're not the only thing that matters. What matters is heart, insight, persistence. You've got all 3. But Sarah's job is to protect the company. She's cautious by nature, but sometimes caution and fear wear the same mask." Maya lowered her eyes. She said I have to choose the hotel job or ClearLink, that it's a conflict. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not her call to make. She says it's against policy for me to be involved while still working as a hotel employee assigned to our guest floors. He was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, pulled open a drawer, and took out a white envelope. Inside was a printed offer letter. I was going to wait until next week, he said, handing it to her. But maybe now is the right time. She opened it. Her breath caught. Title: Director of Human Experience, Sign Language Integration, Full-Time, Health Insurance, Stock Options, Starting Salary, $90,000 a year. That's more than triple what I make now, she whispered. Ethan's voice was calm but firm. You've earned it. You've already shaped the direction of this product more than anyone else on the team. I don't know if I'm ready. No one ever is, he said. That's the secret. We learn by doing. Maya held the paper in her hands like it might dissolve. Her throat was tight. Her chest heavy. I have to give the hotel 2 weeks' notice. He smiled. We can wait 2 weeks. She looked up and for the first time allowed herself to believe it might be real. Later that night, Maya stood in her kitchen reading the offer aloud to Zeke while he stared at her in disbelief. 90,000? He signed, jaw-dropping. Are you joking? She shook her head, tears brimming. Are you going to take it? He asked. I said, yes. Zeke rushed forward and hugged her so tightly she gasped. You're not just helping people like me, he signed. You're showing the world what we can be. Maya held him, her heart pounding, not with fear, but with something far rarer. Pride, possibility, and for the first time in her life, a future that didn't feel borrowed, but built. 2 weeks later, Maya Williams walked through the marble lobby of ClearLink Technologies, not as a maid in uniform, but as an executive in her first tailored blazer. The glass doors reflected her silhouette, modest heels, sleek black pants, and the soft green blouse her mother had once sewn for job interviews she never got to attend. Now it was Maya's lucky charm. Welcome back, Miss Williams, the security guard said with a respectful nod. She smiled, nodded back, and scanned her badge. The beep felt different now. It didn't just grant access. It confirmed she belonged. Clara waved her over the moment she stepped onto the development floor. Come here. You've got to see this. Maya followed her into a side room where the ASL to voice interface was being tested with 2 deaf volunteers. One signed a full conversation while the AI translated with a near-human cadence and emotional inflection. Maya listened, then signed a correction suggestion to the system, changing a flat phrase to one with deeper meaning. That change you made last week about emotional context layering? Clara said, pointing at the screen. It's working. 93% accuracy. Maya smiled, her fingers trembling slightly. That's incredible. But the smile faded the moment she noticed Sarachan standing by the glass wall, arms folded, eyes narrowed. The two locked eyes for a moment. Sarah turned away. Later that day, Maya was summoned to a department meeting. She arrived early as usual and sat near the back. The room slowly filled Ethan, Clara, Dennis, 2 HR reps, and to Maya's surprise, a new face. A tall man in a gray suit, mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, firm handshake. This is James Reinhardt, Ethan announced. He's the compliance officer we've brought on to help us prepare for government partnerships. James gave a thin smile. Pleasure. As the meeting wore on, Maya noticed that James kept glancing at her during every mention of sign language integration. It wasn't hostile exactly, but measured, assessing. When Ethan mentioned Maya's promotion, James shifted in his seat and scribbled something in a notebook. After the meeting, Maya exited quietly only to hear footsteps behind her. Miss Williams, James said. She turned. Yes. Do you have a moment? She hesitated, nodded. They stepped into a quiet side corridor. I've reviewed some of your work, James began. Impressive background, especially given the unconventional entry path. Maya blinked, unsure how to respond, he continued. I'm tasked with ensuring Clearlink's public-facing teams meet standards for transparency, training, and data security. You're now a senior figure. That means your background, your affiliations, your family may be reviewed in upcoming audits. Her voice was calm but cool. I understand. I'd also advise caution when developing features that involve personal or emotional data, particularly with language as fluid and culturally sensitive as ASL. Maya's chest tightened. Are you suggesting I'm not qualified? James gave a polite smile. I'm suggesting that when a company grows, scrutiny grows with it. He nodded and walked away. That evening, Maya sat across from Ethan in the company's rooftop cafe. The sunset bathed the skyline in soft orange. He cornered me, Maya said quietly. James said they'd be looking into my background, into Zeke. Ethan's expression hardened. That's out of line. I'm not ashamed of anything, but it felt like a warning. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on the table. This company was built to challenge norms, and right now, your work is the norm breaker. That's why they're afraid. She looked down. He made it sound like I was a liability. You're a threat, Ethan said. To people who built their careers on gatekeeping. He paused, then added, let me be clear. If anything happens, if they so much as try to push you out, I'll walk. Her head snapped up. What? I'll resign, he said, voice steady. You're not just helping us. You're helping people like my nephew who's deaf. People like your sister, Zeke. You matter. Her throat tightened. She wasn't used to that kind of loyalty. It scared her more than James's threats. Thank you, she whispered. The next day, Maya received a mysterious internal calendar invitation titled Private Briefing R&D Compliance Review. No sender, no location, just a time, 4 p.m. She clicked to decline. A minute later, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. It's not optional. Come alone. Her pulse spiked. She took a breath and walked straight to Ethan's office. He listened, brow furrowed. I'm going with you, he said. They told me to come alone. Then you won't go. But Maya shook her head. I need to know what they're doing. If they're building a case to push me out, I want to hear it firsthand. Ethan exhaled through his nose, reluctant. I'll be just outside the door. At 4 p.m. sharp, Maya arrived at the location and unused conference room on the sublevel. Inside were Sarah Chen, James Reinhardt, and another man she didn't recognize. White, late 30s, military haircut, cold eyes. James gestured toward a seat. Maya, thank you for coming. This is Agent Lucas from the Department of Information Oversight. Her eyebrows lifted. Why is a government agent involved in an internal review? Agent Lucas leaned forward. Because your AI module is under consideration for deployment in emergency response systems. That means federal-level scrutiny. Sarah spoke up, tone clipped. We're reviewing all contributors, their data sources, and affiliations. Lucas pulled out a manila folder. Your brother, Ezekiel Williams, is known to have participated in several community protests that turned, he's deaf, Maya interrupted sharply. And peaceful. Nonetheless, Lucas continued. We're obligated to assess the risk of any potential influence on system ethics, bias, or misrepresentation. James added, especially when emotion-based outputs are involved. We're not questioning your skill, only verifying alignment. Maya stood slowly. My brother's deaf, not dangerous. I'm here because I speak a language most of you never try to understand. If that's a threat, maybe you're not building tools, you're building walls. Lucas closed the folder. Unreadable. James's eyes flickered. We'll continue the evaluation. Maya walked out, fists clenched. Ethan was waiting by the elevators. She didn't say a word, just stood there shaking. He reached out and gently touched her wrist. You did the right thing, he said. But in Maya's mind, one thought echoed. If they're this afraid of a maid who signs, what are they hiding behind all that glass? Something had shifted, and it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The storm didn't roll in with thunder or flashing skies. It arrived silently, like a line of unread code buried in Maya's development console. She noticed it 3 days after the compliance review while testing the interface on a new training data set. The ASL to voice AI was suddenly returning phrases she hadn't programmed. Not errors, just subtle deviations in tone. Empathetic responses stripped down. Emotional cues flattened. The voice engine sounded colder. Maya frowned, replaying the output. The original sentence signed by a user. I don't feel safe here. The AI had always translated it as, I'm scared. Capturing the rawness. Now, it read, this environment makes me uncomfortable. A corporate rewrite of fear. She ran a trace, searching the system logs, looking for edits or access changes. At 2:12 a.m. the night before, someone had logged in from a remote admin account. No name, just a masked ID with temporary privileges. They'd altered 6 modules, each involving emotional synthesis and cultural context. Whoever did this, she muttered, knew exactly where to look. She grabbed her phone and texted Ethan. Urgent. I found something. Need a private place. 10 minutes later, they met in the old boardroom on the 19th floor. Rarely used after ClearLink expanded upward, dim, dusty, but still wired into the server system. Maya plugged in her laptop, projecting the flagged code onto the screen. They're rewriting empathy, she said subtly. Just enough to make it sterile. Ethan leaned in. Why? She hesitated, her voice low. If the AI stops registering pain or dulls down distress signals, it changes how emergency services respond, how courts evaluate ASL testimony. It dehumanizes. Ethan's face darkened. You think this is coming from inside? I checked the commit logs. Someone gave that remote account access using clearance that only department heads have. Someone is laundering emotion out of the system. He stared at the screen, then at her. We can't fix this quietly. I know, she whispered. But if we blow the whistle without proof, they'll bury us. For the next 72 hours they worked in secret, Maya tracing changes, Ethan pulling security camera logs, Clara creating encrypted backups of original datasets. Bit by bit, a timeline emerged. The masked edits aligned perfectly with James Reinhardt's arrival. At one point, Clara turned from her screen and asked, what if this isn't just about bias? What if this AI is being prepped for something else? Maya paused. Like what? Surveillance or manipulation? Think about it. They control the emotional filter on sign language input. They can decide what's considered threatening behavior, even silence. The idea chilled the room. By Thursday, they had compiled a full report, timestamped changes, comparison outputs, and internal messages between compliance staff. The final piece came from Clara, a private message string between Sarah Chan and an external contractor. Buried in it was a chilling sentence. We'll keep the ASL model market safe. Too much empathy will trigger legal risks. Flatten where possible. Ethan looked at Maya. We have enough. She nodded. Then it's time. They booked a meeting with the board, formally under tech integrity review. Maya spent that night rehearsing every word. Her hands trembled when she practiced signing the sequence she would use to demonstrate manipulation in real time. Friday morning, they stepped into the top-floor conference room. Ethan carried the laptop. Clara brought the report copies. Maya carried nothing but her voice and her truth. The board members trickled in. James Reinhardt sat at the far end, arms folded. Sarah was beside him, unreadable. Even Agent Lucas had returned, seated silently in the corner, watching like a hawk. Maya stood as the presentation began. I want to show you a sentence, she said, voice clear, signed the same way twice, but interpreted 2 different ways because of hidden alterations in our AI. She moved her fingers through the motion. I feel unsafe. The AI spoke. This environment makes me uncomfortable. Then she toggled to the original dataset, ran it again. I'm scared. A beat of silence. She turned to the board. Our system is being manipulated. Someone with high-level access is systematically dulling emotional translation in sign language. That means victims who use ASL may sound less distressed to the AI, affecting emergency response, mental health triage, even court records. She stepped back. Ethan clicked through the report slides. James stood. This is highly speculative. Internal experiments don't equate to deployed changes. Clara interjected. We traced the login. It came from a masked account authorized through your department. James's jaw clenched. Sarah said quietly. We were instructed to sanitize outputs for market readiness. Ethan faced the room. By whom? A heavy silence. Then Agent Lucas stood. I've heard enough. This crosses beyond commercial ethics. If a deployed AI system misrepresents distress from deaf users, that's federal territory. He turned to Maya. Miss Williams, we'll need a full audit of your module's lineage. You'll have our protection during the review. James's face turned pale. Maya nodded, her voice catching slightly. I just want people like my sister to be heard fully. The meeting adjourned. As Maya stepped out, the weight on her chest eased. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. Ethan walked beside her down the hall. You took a risk. She smiled faintly. So did you. Behind them, the doors closed. But in the quiet between their footsteps, something had changed. Maya wasn't the shy maid anymore. She was the voice they couldn't flatten. The days that followed moved slowly, yet with the gravity of something final unraveling. The audit team arrived by Tuesday. Federal cybersecurity experts, ADA compliance consultants, and a representative from the Justice Department. Sloan Dynamics, once proud of being untouchable, now felt like a glass building under a magnifying lens. Maya sat in the newly cleared conference room on the 18th floor. Her workstation now the central node of a growing digital investigation. She wore the same simple black blouse each day, her hair neatly pulled back, her posture more assured, more grounded. Every now and then, she'd glance up at the photo tacked onto her laptop's corner, picture of her mom and sister, laughing in a small backyard garden. That's who this was for. I've never seen such precision, one of the federal agents muttered as they scrolled through Maya's version control logs. Her work's meticulous, like she expected this fight. Ah, Maya said softly. I didn't expect it, but I've lived parts of it. Across the building, chaos reigned. James Reinhardt had been placed on administrative leave. His assistant resigned quietly the same day. Sarah Chen avoided Maya in the hallways. Her once brisk pace slowed to a walkway by consequence. Clara and Ethan stayed close, helping liaise between legal, tech, and compliance teams. Together, they formed a quiet trio in a storm of executives shifting blame and wiping hard drives. But Maya didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She just worked, methodical, graceful, and unwavering. It wasn't until Friday morning that she was called upstairs again, not to the boardroom this time, but to what they called the echo room. It was a small soundproof chamber once used for market testing audio ads. Now, it had been reconfigured with a round table, 2 chairs, and a single voice recorder in the center. Agent Lucas stood waiting when she entered. Take a seat, Maya, he said with a nod of quiet respect. Across from her sat an older black woman in a navy blazer, Judge Harriet Doyes, a retired federal ADA advocate who now specialized in civil rights technology audits. Her eyes were sharp, her voice even sharper. I read every line of code you flagged, she said. You understand that what you exposed could set precedent for ADA policy enforcement for decades. Maya hesitated. I didn't think about that part. I just thought about how my sister signs the word hurt and how wrong it would be for a machine to call that word inconvenient. Judge Doyes leaned back, folding her hands. And what do you want, Miss Williams? The question surprised her. I want a system that can hear the silent cries, that sees fear when it's signed, not just when it's spoken. I want every ASL user who ever had to sign their pain into a machine to feel seen. Lucas clicked the recorder off. Unreadable. We'll make our recommendations to the DOJ. In the meantime, Sloan Dynamics is issuing a full public disclosure tomorrow. The board voted to revise their ethical framework. Your name will be credited as the whistleblower. Maya's eyes widened slightly. I didn't do this to be seen. That's exactly why you're the one we needed to see, Doi said, standing. The system has cracks. You didn't just report one, you filled it. That night, Maya walked out of Sloan Tower alone. The breeze on her face felt like something new. Not quite freedom, something quieter, integrity, maybe. She stopped by a flower stand on her way home and bought a small bouquet, baby's breath and white lilies. When she entered the apartment, her mother was seated on the couch folding laundry, and her sister Nina was sketching something on a tablet. Maya crouched in front of them and handed the flowers to Nina. For you, she signed. You're the reason I kept going. Nina smiled brightly, her eyes shimmering. She reached out, touched Maya's face, then signed something with both hands, a sign Maya hadn't seen her use in years. Proud. Her chest tightened. Later that evening, Ethan stopped by to drop off the last encrypted backup drive. They sat on the fire escape, knees brushing, the city warm beneath them. Do you realize what you did? He asked. I spoke the truth, Maya said, the only way I knew how. Ethan smiled. I think the world finally heard you. Below, a passing siren echoed down 4th Avenue, fading into night. Sometime around midnight, her phone buzzed email from the Sloan board. Subject, immediate role proposal. She clicked it open. The first line read, We would like to invite Miss Maya Williams to lead the new Ethics and AI Communication Division effective immediately with full autonomy to hire and design structure. Her hand trembled, not with fear, with awe. She stood and looked at herself in the small hallway mirror. Not the maid uniform, not the girl who flinched when spoken to. She saw a woman who had fought quietly and won, not with noise, but with clarity, with decency. And in that reflection, she realized justice doesn't always wear a robe or shout in a courtroom. Sometimes it signs softly in the silence and still changes everything. That night, she slept without dreams for the first time in years. She didn't need them. Reality had finally become brought to you by BUP Stories.